So now for Algebra 1, we're moving into Module 6, and we're going to start looking first at inequalities. So we're going to look at these one-step inequalities. We've already dealt with one-step equations, and one-step equation means we're either going to multiply or divide or add or subtract. So those would be one step. So we're only going to do one step as opposed to doing multiple steps, which would include distribution, multiplying and dividing and adding and subtracting. So it could be a whole bunch of different things when we start looking at multi-step equations. So once we start looking at these one-step equations, we have a couple things, of course, just to review again over. Number one is, what is an inequality? An inequality is something that contains the symbols less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, or not equals. And keep those in mind. So they go in a certain order. They do mean a certain thing. So less than, greater than, you'll see those a lot as we go through it. And then we're going to look at set builder notation, but we're not going to really focus on that. That's more for the book. I'm not really going to stress too much on this, even though we'll see it, especially on the answers whenever we're doing tests or anything like that. So if it's a paper test, I'm probably not even going to worry about it. But that's what we need to really kind of look at. So we've solved one-step equations, like I said. So really the only difference between a one-step inequality are these symbols, and then in some cases what happens to these symbols based on the one step that we have to take. So is 5 a solution of this inequality? Well, 4 times 5 is 20. Is 20 greater than 20? No. So 20 is equal to 20, not greater than. So therefore, the answer would be no. So the solution would be that this is false. This would not be a solution. So are x greater than 7 and 7 is less than x equivalent inequalities? Yes, they are. So if I read it from the variable side, if I say x is greater than 7, and then on this case I read it backwards, x is greater than 7, you can see that if we're reading it to the left, this is a greater than symbol, but normally we always read it from, if we read it from the right, if we read it from the left, it would be x is greater than 7 and 7 is less than x. And of course, those are exactly the same. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one. So we're going to go on to the next resource and just kind of learn some of the terminology as we go through this part of it. So first thing is graphing inequalities. And I like this, the way they kind of set this up to kind of show you what happens. So x is greater than 3.0. So notice here, we have a 3.0 right here. And you'll see that greater than is always to the right. So of course, if our numbers get greater than as we go to the right, our numbers get less than to the left. Now notice this is an open circle. The reason why it's an open circle is because there's not an equal sign there. So if it was greater than or equals, it would be a solid circle as opposed to an open circle like that. So I'm not sure what these widgets show. I guess I didn't really do anything. So anyway, so we can look at that, at these numbers and see what they are, but you can see that anything greater than 3 would be a solution to this particular equation. Okay, I'm going to look at the exercises just really quick. X is greater than 3. Solution set is represented by the blue ray, so they kind of go through that. How many numbers are greater than 3? An infinite number are greater than 3. So there's a bunch of numbers that are greater than 3. Anyway, we're going to move on to the actual problems and get to those so we can get started on this video. So properties of inequalities. There are some important things to know if we are adding in this particular case. So if we add, notice, of course, it's going to get greater. If we subtract, it's going to go down. If we multiply, of course, notice that we multiplied by a negative. So when we multiply a negative, it caused it to go down. If we divide by a large number, in this particular case, we already have a negative there. So we can see how to kind of move those things around, and we can change those numbers if that's what we want to do here. But we'll look at that once we kind of get through it. That's not the greatest slides that I thought that would work, but we'll go through some problems and see how that does work. Okay, so graphing inequalities. So the way that we graph them, as you saw in that very first slide from the very beginning, less than is always going to be to the left. And remember that we have a, or fewer than Less than actually sounds better, but less than would be any number that's to the left of that number. Greater than would be anything to the right or more than that number. Less than or equal to would be anything that's less than that number or it is equal to that number. Okay, and you'll see some other terminology. So notice fewer if it's less than, more if it's greater than. Less than or equal to at most means that the highest it can go up to is 4.1. And then at least this number means that's the lowest number that it could be. So of course, 3.58 is greater than or equal to 3.58 because it's equal to. That's the least it could be. Of course, any number greater than that would be greater than. So we really kind of read it based on that. So remember, this is less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. So that's what we look at when we look at those particular types of problems. Okay, so tap on a marker to learn how a solution set can be graphed. So if we graph on a marker, dot shows at -4, that -4 is included on the graph. Now, how do I know that? I know that because it's a solid line. And of course, any number that's up here, because notice it's a, it's kind of filled in, or you can see kind of the bluish color there. You can see that it has to be greater than or equal to -4. X has to be greater than or equal to -4 when we look at that one in that case. Okay, now we're going to start getting into some problems. So first thing that we want to do is we want to graph an inequality. So notice here, in this case, we want to find x is less than 0.9. So what we're going to do, notice it's less than, not less than or equal to. So we have to decide, is it going to be a circle or is it going to be a dot? Well, I don't look at it that way. I look at, is it an open circle or is it a filled in circle? So if it does have an equal sign, it's filled in. If it does not have an equal sign, it's just a dot. So we have this particular dot, it is 0.9. So we're going to put a dot there. So we're going to go over here and say, let's go over here and we'll put that open circle there. So that's what I thought would happen. I don't know why it's not doing that. Let me see if I can drag it up there. I guess I can't. So I'm not sure how to do that, but we're going to go ahead and go over to the to what I have over here. So we're going to go over to this one over here. So when we have x is less than 0.9, here we have 0. So let me get this filled in. Should have all this stuff set up. So let's say that we have 0. Here we have 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, 1. Okay, and it keeps going up. So this is 1, this is 0 here. And so at 0.9, we have an open circle. So we put an open circle right at that point. And it's everything less than, so it's just everything to the left. So that's how we fill it in. So that's how we would answer that particular question. So we have that one, in that case, going that way. So I'm not sure how to use that graph there. I'll figure it out before class starts though. So determine the inequality that represents this graph. So here we have a graph. Notice it starts at 25. Notice it is an open circle. It's kind of hard to see, but we can see a little bit of that black in there, but that is an open circle. So that means it's going to be greater than, because it's going to the right, and it's not equal to, so it's greater than, and then it's going to be positive 25 because that's what that is right there. Of course, we would check our answer, see if it's right, and it looks good. So we've got that one down. So that one I can do, and we can see how to be able to do that one. Okay, so let's reset all the activities and move on. Okay, so the next one, we hit the checks, but actually I've got some other problems that I want to make sure that we go through. So notice here we have that graph. We've got a homework problem that we're going to look at. H is less than -6. So -6, of course, is lower than 0. So we're going to put in our 0 here, and I'll put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just to have a few extra numbers. 1, 2, 3, just to go a little bit above. So H is less than, because there's not an equal sign there, we're going to put an open circle. It's less than, so it goes to the left. Kind of follow the arrow, and we've got it over there. Okay. Finding the inequality that's based on the graph, we already did this one. This one is x is greater than 25 because of that open circle. On the homework problem that you have, you want to find this one. In this particular case, notice that this point right here, there's a line right there. You obviously can't see it very well. There's one there, there's one there. So this point is -1, then we have 0, 1, 2, 3. So notice we have a closed circle or a solid circle there, so it's going to be equals. It's going to the left, so it's going to be less than or equal to. We're going to have x is less than or equal to, because it's 1, we're going to have x is less than or equal to 1. So now you're going to go and do the check. Don't worry about the word problems. Just do these problems that are listed out like this for your check that's going to get graded and be part of your overall grade. Okay, we'll go to the next video after that.